I have insurance, and so I don't need to focus on anything else other than just my physical well-being, because a bike is completely replaceable. And the fact that you have insurance and that you're protected and you're covered, all you need to do is focus on yourself and getting yourself better. Like, I'm going to try and I'm going to take risks and I'm going to take chances, because why else? Why would you not, right? I'm Alicia Speak. I'm 37. I'm a full-time lawyer, but I'm also a cyclist for Cycle Team London.
Special guest to come, but Rouleur wanted to create this Hall of Fame, really, to have an everlasting celebration of the greatest of the great of our sport, and a continuing celebration of their victories and of their feats. Alongside this, there's a special Patron Award, which recognises exceptional services to the sport of cycling. And we are thrilled to have collaborated with a legendary manufacturer to create a trophy. So our thanks to Keith and all the team at Reynolds for creating an award made out of Reynolds steel tubing. Now, the first inductee in this year's Rouleur Classic Hall of Fame is a rider for whom the acronym GOAT really could have been devised. If we're going to talk about one female rider who could and should and is considered the greatest of all time, it has to be Marianna Voss. Is it written somewhere? Yeah. Oh, well, that put paid to that.
You should have stood in front of that.
Anyway, Marianna Voss. She is actually the only current cyclist to even have been shortlisted for the Rouleur Hall of Fame. Such has been her dominance over the years. I'm going to have to read the list of her achievements, because even though I work in women's cycling, I don't want to get any of this wrong, because it is
You're not going to read them all, are you? You'll be here all
phenomenal.
night.
Not every single result. Here's some of her highlights. Her official record counts 208 road wins to date, including the overall and stage races. She leads the way in the Giro Rosa with 25 stage wins. She's taken the overall in the biggest race in women's cycling 3 times. A 3-time world road champion, Olympic gold medalist from London 2012, 5-time champion of Flèche Wallonne. I mean, to be perfectly honest, it's easier to name the races that she hasn't won than the races that she has. And we're just talking about road, because obviously, of course, she is a cyclocross and track champion as well. 7-time cyclocross world champion. I mean, that's something that will surely never be bettered. Olympic and world titles on the track as well in the points race in 2008. I mean, basically, you put Marianna Voss on a bike, in any race, and chances are she's probably going to win it. Such has been her dominance over the years that when her form took a bit of a dip in recent years, and she wasn't winning as much as she had been before, people had written her off. Much too soon, of course, as it would turn out to be, because in the form of a true champion, she has come back this year and has been as celebrated and as successful as ever. She has won the Tour de Yorkshire, 19 wins this year, and of course we had the ferocious solo attack to the final of La Course in Pau. In a scene in women's cycling in particular that is crowded with Dutch dominance, no one even there comes close. No one in the world comes close when it comes, certainly in all of history, when it comes to the breadth and the length and the depth of her dominance. And that is why we say that Marianna Voss is the greatest of all time. And that is why she is being inducted tonight into the Rouleur Classic Hall of Fame. She can't be here. Sorry. I know, but in the tradition of all great award ceremonies, she sent us this.
Hi, people. Unfortunately, I can't make it tonight. Of course, I would have wished to be there with you and celebrate this evening, but I'm very honored. I was already honored to be in the shortlist for the Women's Hall of Fame, but to be voted to be the winner and to be in this Hall of Fame amongst those other people, it's incredible, and it's a big honor. Especially if I look around to the other names that were on the short list, it's incredible to win, and I see it as a big celebration of my whole career. I hope to still go on and to make to top it with some good results, but of course this is already a big thing, and I'm still enjoying it. So thank you Thank you for the votes, and have a good evening.
Well, Marianna Voss will be accepting the award in person at the inaugural Melbourne Rouleur Classic later this month. But a final round of applause, if you will. It is a privilege to live in the same lifetime as the wonderful Marianna Voss. Woo, 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 woo!
Class act.
Gonna swap.
Well, from one class act to another couple of very important people, certainly in the job that we do in broadcasting. Our next inductees, for 40 years, Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwin, have been welcomed into all of our homes, all of the homes of any English-speaking cycling fan around the world. The soothing, reassuring, dulcet tones, accompanied by the expert analysis of the other. Phil Liggett, Paul Sherwin, entering your living rooms. I suppose it'd be on your mobile phones nowadays, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And your iPads and all that sort of stuff. But back when the telly was the only way to keep up with things and maybe buying a copy of Cycling Weekly, that was how we knew about what happened in cycling. The Tour de France introduced millions of English-speaking viewers to their trusted guides for 3 weeks each July. Phil and his very good friend, and you have to say co-pilot really, Paul Sherwin, would call each day's action. They'd have the little compact commentary booth near the finish line. We know what that's like, don't we?
Yeah.
A little broom cupboard right on the line, just behind where the riders finish them. They'd only see the riders probably once a day, just when they zoom past them right at the finish line. But they managed to tell you about everything: the culture, the wine, the castles, and of course, the racing. The double act was seamless, wasn't it? Friendly, inclusive. Didn't matter, did it really, if you like cycling or not? Didn't matter if you didn't know anything. But they were always passionate when required, factual when necessary. As Phil told this very magazine, Rouleur, in 2007, always imagine that your viewer is not a cyclist. And that's how we, the viewing public, entered the mystical world of continental bike racing, out of our own comfort zones, as we heard from Phil Anderson earlier on today, into an alien culture, if you like, and all of its little idiosyncrasies and all the things that happen on the road, off the road, and thanks to Phil and Paul, in our living rooms as well. The cycling audience started to grow, and in fact, thanks to them, it grew exponentially so. All the way in the 1980s, Liggett and Sherwin were always there to guide everybody through it, though. The complex tactics and nuances of Grand Tour racing. The English-speaking riders, we saw Phil Anderson. We have Greg LeMond here as well tonight as well. Yeah. We'll have more of that in a minute, by the way. And of course, his win in 1986 attracted a heck of a load more viewers, not just here, but in their other huge market in the United States of America. So suddenly, English-speaking riders were major contenders, and they had a much bigger audience. But they carried on in their fashion, helping people understand the sport. Americans in their millions thrilled the exploits of Le Monde and then Lance Armstrong. Australians rejoiced alongside Cadel Evans and Robbie McEwen, of course. Irish eyes smiling at our mate Sean Kelly, Stephen Roach as well. And of course, we got to recent times, the South Africans were Robbie Hunter, Bradley Wiggins, Geraint Thomas, Mark Cavendish, and all of his 30 stage wins. The duo worked across the whole of Europe. They went also to Australia in January. Didn't have a bad life, to be fair, traveling around. No broom cupboards in West London for them. They were at the Spring Classics. You actually can still see Phil there sitting in the stand in Roubaix every April. Few layers, few coats on, pillows and cushions either side. But of course he had Paul with him. And again, it was their job to educate people and call the racing. 4 decades on the road with the greatest cyclists of their era, talking about the sport they love, and of course, doing it for a living. Doesn't really get much better than that, does it? Sadly, the double act ended in 2018 with a very sad and untimely death of Paul Sherwin. From my own experience, I'm a relative recent newcomer, of course, but when I turned up, I know that Paul was an exceptionally nice man. He was nice to everybody. He was just a down-to-earth, very gentle soul, and he talked to the first person that turned up, the old newbie, and he was a lovely, lovely guy. So, after all that they achieved, please welcome into the Rouleur Hall of Fame Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwin, who are recipients of the Le Patron Award for 2019. Now, as Orla just pointed out, in the great tradition of award ceremonies, unfortunately Phil couldn't be with us tonight, but our colleague Ned Bolting did manage to catch up with him, and this is what he sent.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me huge pleasure to announce the public vote and the award for the Patron, the Rouleur Patron of 2019, goes to, well, two of the most familiar names, voices and faces that have ever graced television screens, and they've done it for a long time. Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwin, Phil.
Yes. Well, everyone, I'm so flattered. I'm going to be lost for words, and commentators should never be lost for words. But I've just been told that we have won this award, both Paul and myself. And as you know, it's been an incredibly sad year for me to work after what would have been our 34th year together. We were the longest running a duo in sport on television, in any sport around the world. And Paul was always the first to remind me of that. But to be recognised by Rouleur and by this great award, Le Patron, because in fairness, Paul always used to talk about Le Patron of the Tour de France. He's not here, but I know with the outpouring of love since he did pass away, he had no idea how much people liked him. He would have been a great recipient of this award, and I would have been alongside him. We missed that occasion, but hey, I'm extremely flattered, and a great vote of thanks to everybody who voted for us. And when I get to see Paul, which may not be too far away, I'll show him the award. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, one final time, Paul Sherwin and Phil Liggett.
And now, just to show that we aren't just having video messages in tonight's Hall of Fame induction, next up we have the winner of 3 yellow jerseys, 2 rainbow jerseys, and a lifetime of firsts. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome into the Rouleur Hall of Fame, Greg LeMond. Woo!
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned Paul Sherwin. That was great. I said I wish Paul was here too. That was very nice that you honored Paul and Phil, but sad that Paul is not here. He's a great guy. I raced with him. As you said, very nice guy. So it's great. Glad you did that. Thank you very much. So I don't know what to say. I feel like I'm the older you get, the better you thought you were. So kind of that kind of deal. God, I'm 89, 30 years. I'm still getting an award. That's kind of crazy.
Hard earned, Greg. Take a seat if you will.
Thank you.
We'll chat you through all the reasons that you've got that award. First of all, though, I want to know where you're going to put it. Toilet?
No. I'll put this.
That's where they put them, isn't it?
I think I'm going to put it right next to my wife's shrine. I have a statue of her. So I'm going to put it right below her.
Where does your wife stay next to the wife's shrine?
I got a full-size statue of her, 3D printed.
Where's Kathy?
Now, I have a friend here who's from France. He said, Greg, you should make a statue of your wife and every day get up and go to your knees, kiss it, and pray that she still stays with you. So.
Is this true?
Yeah. No, he says that. Yeah. So, no, I think I'll keep it in my living room.
Excellent. Greg, what a career. What a list of achievements that you've had. Do moments like this, I mean, you've talked about your career a lot, and that's part of your career now, I guess, and reflected an awful lot on the wonderful achievements. Does something like this make you reflect on that in any kind of a different way?
I said it's kind of crazy 30 years later that I'm getting something like this. But, yeah, I think when you get older, you look back with fond memories. Sometimes it's also, you wish there's a lot of stuff you wish you could have done at that period. I missed a few years of my prime. But when I look back, you take what you can get. And the fact that I won 3 tours, a couple world championships, I'm pretty happy with that. Some riders never get that chance. And so, yeah, I'm really happy I was able to at least start cycling when I did. And excuse me, this thing's falling out. No, I look back, I don't really have any regrets, and just wish I could have raced until I think when you start racing, you want to race to about 60 years old, but you realize you can't. Sometimes I still dream that I'm 50 years old getting in the Tour de France. Actually, I think, how could I be racing this well and I weigh 50, 60 pounds heavier? I can't believe I'm that good.
Oh, the beautiful world.
It doesn't
of
go out of your
dreams.
brain. Racing's in your soul. So, and it's what you don't realize is once you're a pro racer, it's hard to go back and race a normal race. So you always want to be like in the Tour de France or Paris-Roubaix, but I still ride a little bit, not much. Should ride more.
Great. We were talking about Phil and Paul there and the huge audience they started to get in the 1980s. What effect did your victories have on cycling in America?
Well, I just, without TV, it probably would not have known who I was. And I think right in '83 was the first time NBC or ABC filmed the Tour de France. And then '84 was my first year. That was really the first time I think they really started covering it. You have to have an American rider doing well. And then '85 got more coverage, '86. But it was really '89 that really kind of, you always have to have that comeback, It's a good story. It's got to have some drama.
But I think quite a bit, didn't it, that one?
But I think what is amazing today, though, I was in China, then I was in Bangkok, and I got a taxi cab driver. And I was 52 years old, but he knew the Tour de France, knew who I was. And today you have people all around the world watching the Tour de France. It's a different era. It's great, and TV has opened the sport to so many different countries. And you see Malaysia, you see Thailand, Southeast Asia, where the sport's really growing. And I think so different than when I was racing. I think Phil and everybody can relate to that. It was really a spectator sport and racers. Today it's participants, and they're much more tied to the sport. And I think it's got a much healthier base of people who love cycling.
Greg, winning is obviously what cements you in the history books, but I guess it's rivalry that creates the stories and makes those stories so epic. When we look back at the wonderful, and I delight in it. I delight in the rivalry that you had with Bernardino. I think that it makes your story all the more beautiful to read about. Do you look back on that and I guess feel a bit grateful maybe for...
Make it a water. Before I talk, you get me
Sorry.
nervous, so
Let's put this
I don't want to just dry. I get dry mouth when I get nervous. No.
Static lifting with that.
So,
do you look back on those on that rivalry in particular? I think with any kind of affection these days.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I thought Hino was one of the best of all times, and it was actually a good teammate, but he won't say this, but we were
friends here. You don't have to pretend.
I thought he was really one of the best, and he was. So I beat one of the best, fair and square. Even though he won't admit that today, but it's not that often you get a race, you've got 2-3 people on a team, you have to race your own teammates. So when I think back of it, it was kind of, Cyril Guimard was my first coach, and he picked me out when I was 18 years old, when he was 18, 19 years old, Fignon. We had an incredible team in '84 when Hino left. I was third, Fignon won. This tour, we won 10 stages. So we had an incredible team, but those teammates became my competitors. So it was, and I'm proud that I won the tours that I won because they were against really competitive racers. 1990, I hate to say this, but I had mono until May. I couldn't barely ride, and I won the tour they call it breathing through your nose. I can't believe I won it that year. But when you don't have that competitor, that type of, not all victories are the same. So some victories you achieve over bigger, tougher competition, and so I'm pretty proud of at least beating my teammates. They didn't help me.
Cycling's obviously changed a lot. You mentioned Cyril Guimard there. He still works at the Tour de France on the radio every year. We listen to him every night on driving away from the stage.
Yeah.
He will have seen a lot of changes. You recently came back and worked with us at Eurosport.
Yeah.
How has it changed?
I think the sport in general, the racers are racing year-round. I think it's very intense. I don't know how they're racing with radios because I would have ripped them out of my ear and said, I can't handle that. But I think, the competitions...
Why is that? The noise, the distraction, or just somebody telling you what to do?
They know that it's not safe. You can't text and drive your car. It's significantly more dangerous. And I've heard the director sportif screaming at the riders, "Poisson met à droite, à droite." I'm going, I couldn't even, if I was doing a time trial, I couldn't have, if there was one word, it breaks my concentration. So I think that's pretty tough. No, I think the racing's been, it's very competitive, racing from February through October. It's a lot of great racers, and I think, I do say it's like with the radios, it puts a lot more pressure on the riders, and everybody's got to be in the front. And I don't know how, like, Chris Froome is in these riders. I mean, I think in 2014 he had 3 crashes in one day. I'm going, no way. Okay, 1 crash, that's good. I figured out how to stay out of crashes after a while, but...
How do you stay out of crashes?
Stay in the front. Got to
Right.
be in the 10,
But that's
top
what they all
10.
say. That's
Top
what they all
10.
say.
And I think disc brakes are good because
Yeah.
I still think that carbon fiber braking pads, it doesn't really hit until you dries off the rim. So I don't know how they do it. I mean, some of the crashes are pretty wild today. But I think, every era has I look back, every era has, I think when I started racing, you start racing, you think, oh, it was so much harder when I started racing. I go, well, Merckx just retired 2 years ago. How can it be that much harder 2 years? And I think when you start racing, you race for 14 years, it does evolve, but those same racers, it's not like one generation stops, another generation starts. It's this kind of, you slowly evolved into, you adapt to your conditions of racing. But I think today, when you look at the TV coverage, that people are, it's a different animal, and it's great. I think people really exposes the world to the sport of cycling, and it's a good thing.
What do you think it's like these days as an organised sport for fans? So I'm thinking of your rivalry with Bernardino and the fact that you guys fought it out on the road. You almost fought it out off the road. It was very physical. It was very obvious. It was very blatant. And these days, teams tend, unless they're Movistar, tend to be maybe a little bit less obvious.
I think
about
there's going to be a
that.
great race next year with Chris Froome and the
But
Colombian.
do you
It's going to be
think
great. Who's going to
Do you think they're
win?
going to fight that out? Do you think that we'll be allowed to have an honesty to that?
The truth is, it was rare in '86.
Yeah.
Typically, you race for a team, you race for somebody.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of teasing. I think if I'm Bernal, I don't want to call Bernal. Bernal. I'm just going to say, one thing I regret was kind of giving the benefit of my doubt to my teammate, because at the end of your career, it's just you. Mm-hmm. That friend that you thought you had, it's not your friend. So, but I think it is a professional sport, and you sign a contract, and if it's whoever you have to work for, sometimes you have to do it. You have to sacrifice. But I wish I was a little more selfish, I said at times, where I would have just gone for myself. But it's a team sport. You got to play along with the team. And but I think, I know this is not probably popular with modern day racers right now, but I wish they'd race without radios for period. Because I think it creates a little more uncertainty, less organized, and takes a little more, could create a little more drama. Might, I know the directors don't like that because they like to talk to the riders, but it might be good. You never know. Mix it up a little bit. Mix it up a little bit.
There's some support there. Yeah. There's some support for that there.
But I think it's, sometimes in sports, Formula One, sometimes you have to mix it up. You've got to change things for excitement. I think a guy like Peter Sagan, and he's an instinctive rider. He doesn't need a director to tell him what he's doing. And that's really what racing used to be about, where it's instinctive. Your teammates, you're talking to them. And I think there's like Van der Poel, got some young riders they didn't grow up with that. They're still kind of, cyclocross, mountain biking. I think that'd be great. But it's adopt, things change. I used the radio back in 91, 92, and it was good enough, one race. That was good. But I think, I'm excited right now I see this year, and I see some of the new races coming up, and the World Championships was exciting to watch, and I said the men and women's relay, it's some good things going.
You like that as an innovation?
Yeah, I do. I think at first I'm going, what? But absolutely. You imagine Olympics when you got men and women. It's going to be one of the best events ever, I think, really.
Would you keep the current format, or is there little things that you might change about it? I know that a lot of people like the concept, but would maybe change one or two little rules.
Like, what do they don't like about it?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
Would you do it the exact same way?
Yeah, I think. I mean,
the
I
same
think
order and.
I think you got to. I mean, it's first time, and at the Olympics, you know, it's going to be in the Olympics, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you got to give it a year or two. I do miss. I always thought a great thing would be a relay triathlon too. It'd be great to have the best runner, best swimmer, best cyclist from each country. But I do think this mixed relay is great. I think it's there's a lot more women riding bikes today. Brings people into it. Yeah, it's not. Used to be when I was racing, literally it was like you go to Italy and through Italy, it's all men. You couldn't see any women. And today you see women riding bikes doing Grand Fondos. It's so much better.
What about, we're talking about innovation and change, but one of the traditions that feels like it's set in stone these days is this last ceremonial day of a Grand Tour. What about an innovation that's a throwback to the past and having a time trial into Paris instead? Because,
Why not? Why not?
That 8-second gap between you and
Got to wait till
Paul.
Tom Dumoulin. You got to have a really, got to let the climbers get it, think they have it, and then you throw in about a 60K time trial. Because really the race now is favoring climbers in a big way. So, and it's going to favor that. I mean, everybody's, looks like everybody's shrinking in size. And so an all-rounder like Dumoulin's going to have a little more difficult time. So maybe you throw in that once in a while, throw a time trial at the end. It'd be a good thing.
Are you a fan of the ceremonial day into Paris, for example, because it feels the most iconic?
Well, it wasn't in '89. I loved it.
Yeah.
Because at least I got a chance. I just wish the time trial was a little bit longer, but it's actually anticlimactic. I mean, I remember 86, I'm going, okay, all you're doing is worried about staying up to the end of the race. And yeah, it's good, but you can mix it up. Not every year for 100 years. It's one time. Come on. Once every 5, 10 years, change it up. Yeah, I think it'd be good.
Well, it's true, isn't it? We talk about, certainly in a broadcast sense, we talk about the tour finishing on Saturday.
Yeah.
We announce somebody as having won the tour on a Saturday afternoon.
That's right.
We're yet to see somebody fall off and it finish, but
it can happen. People can lose the tour in 8 seconds. Never know. They can just get too confident. Think it's. I said, Fignon,
Look at that.
Poor guy. He congratulated me the day before, and I said, "Oh my." He's the same coach, and Cyril Guimard said the race is never over till the finish line. I knew he lost the race that day because he started off way too cocky. It's only a good thing. I think Hino and Fignon get very cocky, get a little full of themselves. Then that's when you lose. It's true. But no, I think many years ago, black and white, silent movies. So it feels like
there's plenty of colour on that jersey.
It seems like it was yesterday, but it seems like a long time ago. But getting old.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, getting old.
And gracefully too as an award winner.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's that?
And gracefully too as an award winner here.
Oh yeah, thank you.
What about American cycling at the moment then? How do you see it? You are the only American Tour de France winner.
Yeah, I laughed because somebody. Oh yeah, that.
I brought the history books.
Did we need to go there?
That wasn't mine.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Armstrong shouldn't have won the tour.
Should or shouldn't?
Should not have.
Should not.
He was a massive cheat, and I'm going to say that. He was. But worse than that, he was a bully. He really bullied people, and he was not a good person. And so, it's one thing about doping and all that, but there is about people. I've never met anybody that's brutal against people in cycling. I mean, Pantani was a nice guy, and in a difficult sport. But when you get kind of a mafia type attitude, that's what I really objected to is, mocking Pantani. I mean, just denigrating people. Anybody question. So that's always been my deal is treating people fairly. And so I'm going to be honest. I've had my share of 15 years of him stalking me. So I'm not going to hide it.
It's your right of reply.
Yeah. So sometimes it works out that some of the bad people don't get ahead, but it's rare. Unfortunately, sometimes they do. And no, you don't love me. No. My wife loves me. My wife, I think.
Does she have a shrine to you?
I think she does. She's talking about her old boyfriend, so I don't know. I hope she loves me. So, but yeah, Let's not go there right now. Yeah, that's not. Yeah, we'll talk about that some other day.
Yeah, maybe. But where do you see another American?
Well, I said
from?
Quinn Simon's this kid, 18 years, won the Junior World Championships. It's funny, somebody said, oh, well, God, there's no American cyclists. But right now there's a high school mountain bike series going on, 30,000 kids. And you don't know where they're going to come out of. You think cycling's dead. Now you got this whole group of young Americans that are coming up. And you just need one really good rider to inspire somebody else. And I think it's, the only thing with Armstrong, he did inspire a lot of people. And I think he's got a lot of people into it. But you need to hopefully continue that. And I always think, like our cycling federation was always elitist, always pure Olympics and all that. That's not where you get the champions. It's got to go down to the high school level, even younger, and inspire kids there. And if you get a lot of kids into cycling at that point, you're going to get a lot of champions. The cream always rises to the top, and they'll find a way, but it's getting the people started is where you're going to create a lot of the real good champions, and they got to discover the sport. And I think that's what's great about mountain bike and cyclocross. It opens the sport to a lot more people, and they migrate to road racing. But I think that's where you look at Peter Sagan. A lot of these guys are coming into it from mountain biking. So I always look at cycling as I'm a cyclist. I mountain bike. I did cyclocross training, but I think you always do everything. And I think you never know where they're going to come from. But this Quinn Simon's 18 years old, man. I saw his power output. He's strong. He's going to be a good rider, really good rider. So, a lot of good riders though in the world. Takes a lot of determination and desire. That's probably the number one thing. A lot of good talent, but it's the brain that pushes you. So, I don't know. I don't know what else to say.
One last thing on the cross and the mountain bike. Well, we've seen Mathieu van der Poel as the biggest example, haven't we, in the last couple of years? Wout van Aert until his injury. Is there something about the training for those short kind of
Absolutely.
efforts that
Yeah,
that makes them
100%.
so good? And are we
physiology,
see...
it's physiology.
Yeah.
Guimard, when we were racing, Marc Madio was national champion. Cyclocross is about the best thing you could do, and basically you're doing almost anything you do in racing you can in under 1 hour. Think of time trial, everything you do to win a race is under 1 hour. 7-8 hours is great to burn some fat, but it's not where you win races. Even if you look at a stage of the tour, there's probably 3 or 4 hours of really high workload, and then I like that because I always I think as much as you think things evolved, I hear still the way they're training some riders are it's like a throwback to the 80s. And so you got a Van der Poel in that, they're coming in from much more short, intense. You don't need to train 7 hours to win races. The most important thing is where your threshold is and your ability to go deep and aerobically, and that's where Van der Poel kind of showing people up.
You might get a lot of people trying to replicate that then and trying to make sure they do some cross, even if they're not a crosser.
Well, I always think of like 10K runners when a lot of runners get into, they go from 10K and they do their best 10Ks and they get into marathons and then they train like a marathon runner. They go slower and they get more injured. And so it's pretty much, I always think of Chris Boardman and doing the hour record. I mean, if you look at what you do in a Tour de France, it's the hour up a climb, it's a time trial. And so you have to work in higher workloads, but that comes from, you're better off being in really good shape from high quality. And I think you're training year round, you have to maintain a high level, and I think that's where Van der Poel and, I say Guimard had trained year round riders who were doing cyclocross, but, and it's good for you. I know that it's got to have fun on the bike too. Cyclocross and mountain biking is really fun. So.
I love this idea, being able to train for a marathon by doing 10Ks. That's my kind of marathon thing. Keep it short.
But if you're running 10K, you're doing 4 minutes, 30 seconds. To run at 6 minutes or 5.5 is a breeze. So it's really your aerobic capacity. People kind of claim, you burn a lot more fat. Well, your aerobic capacity is so high that your rate of burning sugars you're at such higher levels. So even at lower intensity, you're burning more fat. It's not just because you're burning more fat because you go slow. It's your aerobic capacity is much higher. So, and that's what running kind of shows. That's what Van der Poel kind of proves. So you win races by being able to drop people. You don't win them by going like a diesel.
Yeah.
So it's true.
Are they the guys who excite you the most at the minute then? Are you still a cycling fan? Do these guys get you going?
This year I have to say, Kathy will kill me because I keep mixing Bernal.
Yeah.
What's wrong with mentioning Bernal?
But because it's too close to another name. Bernal. So she's always kind of, no. Not do not even, but I think I mean, you look at all the young riders winning today, and I think, you know, I said, I can't even, Belgian, come on. Remco, oh my God. 18, 19 years old, oh my God. Look, Vanderpool, you got these guys that are under 22. Dams Pedersen, 22 years old. So there's some really great talent. I just think it's exciting when you see a new generation come up. Reminds me of like when Phil Anderson too, there's a young group of people and you see these older guys are kind of going, oh, your days are numbered. And I think there's a lot of people in the peloton should be nervous.
We spoiled this year with that, weren't we?
Yeah, oh, it was a great tour. I think the next couple of years are going to be good for cycling.
Oh.
Good competition.
You heard it here
good,
first, people, from the mouth of Greg LeMond, our latest inductee in the
Thank
Hall
you.
of Fame. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oops. Uh-oh. I had to take my socks off. It was too hot in here. Thank you. Thanks, Rouleur and everybody. I don't know what to say. Anyways. Okay. Thank you.
Now you're staying on next.
I'm coming on again, yeah.
Yeah.
We have Fabian Cancellara coming next, so
Yeah,
there you go.
oh yeah.
Plenty of Sporticus fans here. So if you're going to decamp, do it very quickly. Be back here because that's coming up in 5 minutes' time.
Yeah.